attendees to participate. So I'm just suggesting we be more wary of that. What was the official announcement?
I started the recording. Yeah, no, so this we'll have to discuss, right?
Okay.
So, yeah.
Maybe as a chat, so it's visible on the screen. If some people are typing, and
good idea.
We can also do more typing.
Okay. All right. Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the Istio Networking Work Group meeting. We have actually a couple of items in the agenda. First is CNI update from Red Hat. And the second, we plan to continue discussing the Istio 1-2 priorities. It's not in here, but I will add it. And before we start, let's talk a bit about how we managed to engage the remote attendees a bit better. So we actually received feedback that is not always easy for people to join the conversation. So I'm actually looking for ideas. I'm not sure what would be appropriate here, like maybe a message in the chat or just like, make noise. What would work here? Like Josh, you had some ideas, I think.
Well, I was relaying stuff I heard from others, but one possibility is, say, everyone attends over GVC from their desk or something. So we have to converse over GVC as well. We can't do this priority channel override thing. But another one is also we run the meeting entirely over Slack. In which case we actually have a nice, and then we save the notes someplace to some document, maybe the meeting notes or something. So anybody have any opinions?
Okay, so there is something in the chat. I think we have a problem here because I can't see that far. So yeah, both of those are rocking ideas. Okay, use the chat more.
Sorry, we just joined. We don't know what's being asked.
Oh, okay, then. Sorry. Well, we're trying to make sure the remote attendees have a better chance to comment, like to bring up their ideas. And it's sometimes difficult, us being, far in a remote room there and not seeing, not really reading what's happening online. So we were wondering, how can we do this better?
So Andrew, I think that first idea, I think it was Josh had it about having everybody attend from their desk. That may be disruptive internally, but that would be great because I've seen how that works in a video conference, and everybody has to kind of fight for a spot, but it's better than one room dominating the conversation.
Just for proper attribution, I think it was Zach Butcher from Tetra that had that idea. But...
Okay, Zach, yeah. I still think it's a good idea.
At Pivotal, that's official policy. If one person is remote, the whole meeting is held remotely.
Interesting.
Okay. So?
Abandon ship.
Okay, goodbye.
All right, see ya. We'll jump back
come on, guys. No, I think
let's start next time.
We're wasting time. That's what we're going to do next time, all right? So Ed is saying I found... Okay, so here's the problem because it's going to be harder to let people in. So whoever is closer than
I'm thinking here.
Oh, okay. Because the screen shows the loudest person. It is hard for my chair to be louder than a room. Oh, I understand. Okay, that's interesting. All right, so let's try this new option for next meeting. I think Louis will try it even now. Yeah, for today, I guess it makes sense to stay here. Otherwise, we'll waste too much time moving and trying to find headsets and everything. All right, so I think we can proceed with the real things here. So Marco, are you here to give us the update on CNI?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Please feel free to share the screen.
Yeah, let me just see if I can. Oh, maybe I need to, because I can just share my entire screen, and that's a dual monitor. Maybe it's not going to be, you're not going to be able to see everything. Just tell me if you at least can see my slide.
Well, we see your slide. We also see a bit of a YouTube
Yeah.
that's truncated, and everything is very small. So if you
Yeah.
can manage
Let me
to make
just
it
try
bigger.
to turn off one of my monitors.
Oh, interesting. How many monitors do you have?
Two.
Okay.
Right. Okay. This should be better now.
That's much better.
Yeah.
That's good.
Thanks.
Okay. So I have one slide just that explains what my work is basically doing and so on. So so let's start with the existing CNI plugin, which does nothing more than just, so when you deploy the CNI daemon set, it obviously runs the pod, and the pod then just installs the CNI plugin binary onto the host's file system. I've now added an additional container into the pod, which is there so it can take care of the Envoy, well, the Istio proxy container, which is no longer run through Kubernetes directly, but sort of by hacking into the CRI, so the proxy management agent runs it alongside the other containers inside the same pod, even though it's not even visible in the pod. So when you deploy an application pod resource with the Kubernetes API, with the single application container, the sidecar injector no longer gets called, so I've disabled it, and instead the proxy management agent takes care of injecting the sidecar into the pod. So how this works is like this. So obviously when the pod is being created on the worker node, first the sandbox is created, then the IP tables rules are changed by the CNI plugin inside that same pod sandbox, actually inside that same network namespace, right? And then additionally, the CNI plugin calls the proxy management agent, which then calls the container runtime interface in order to run the additional container, so the Envoy proxy container. And as you can see, this one runs first before the application container starts. So by doing this, we take care of the problems where the sidecar container currently starts up too late if somebody is using init containers in their pods, because init containers basically, because the IP tables rules are already in place, none of the init containers are able to access the network services, right? Because the IP tables are routing traffic to the proxy, and the proxy is not up. So in this case, the proxy is up, so therefore, as soon as any container runs, it obviously can go through the proxy and everything works as it's supposed to work. Okay, that is the end of my slide, but at the end, so on pod shutdown, obviously the application containers get shut down first, and only then when the CNI plugin gets called to tear down the networking, it also shuts down my proxy, and that's it. So basically, we have the proxy in place for the whole lifetime of the pod, right? So this fixes a lot of the issues with the proxy not being up at the correct time. So I can just demo this quickly. Let's see. So I have 3 terminals. The one at the top shows the log of the management agent. Here I'll see. I have the book info app running. If I now delete the details pod, you're going to see that the management agent first stops the previous pod's container, right? Then looks up the necessary config maps, and then starts up the
proxy sidecar container. And if we take a look at the node itself, let's say CryCTL pods. So the details pod is run here. So CryCTL PS. Oh no, like this. Pod. If I now list the containers that are part of the pod, yes, you see that there are in fact 2 containers running inside the same pod, even though if I list the Kubernetes pods, the details pod only has 1 container, right? So, so this is obviously the biggest difference from how Istio used to work, well, how it works normally, actually. So the additional container is completely hidden from the user, which is obviously sort of a bad thing because you can't access the logs. You have to go on the node itself and then do the, let's say, Docker logs, and then the logs and so on. But there is a way around it. I just haven't gotten around to doing it. But yeah.
If you can check the chat, also there are some questions in the chat.
Let me just see. Yes, exactly. It does bypass Kubernetes primitives for controlling CPU and memory. Actually, it does set them on the container. At least it sets the limits, right? But it doesn't set the requests, obviously, because that has to happen before the pod is scheduled. So that's one other bad thing about this.
Yeah, actually, we should be like, if we answer a question that's on the chat, we should repeat the question loud. Some people may not necessarily be able to join like fully the meeting, may just be listening to the meeting. So I think, it's a good idea to read out the question.
Okay, yeah, so the question was whether it bypasses the Kubernetes primitives for controlling CPU and memory. I actually repeated that in the answer itself, so it was pretty clear. So the other question is, does the sidecar piggyback on the pod CPU? It actually doesn't. So it has its own CPU limits. So they aren't accounted for when the pod is being scheduled. That's also a problem, obviously. Yeah, that would have that effect.
A question about so you've probably looked at the sidecar injector and it's got a template. You implement that template in your work?
Yes, the agent actually looks up the config map holding the template and processes it in the exact same way as it's processed usually. And then I just extract the necessary data, like the image, the arguments, the CPU request, for example, the reference secret, and so on. So basically, I extract all that data and use it to configure the sidecar container. So it's completely configurable as it was previously.
Well, one of the reasons I asked is because in a prior environments meeting, we had an operator that had written their own sidecar injector because they wanted to rate limit, as I recall. I'm not sure if that's related to my question or if that's a new question. Kostin, do you remember the context of that?
Well, they want a custom configuration, and that's fine. I mean, there is nothing we can do about it. Some people will want to do it this way, but presumably the CNI also can be customized in different ways, and you can put whatever, kind of templates in the CNI configuration. So they can reproduce whatever they need in the CNI. I put in chat, I mean, I'd be very happy if we don't have a sidecar injector. I mean, if we have CNI, we have CNI, and that's kind of the source of truth on injection. I mean, and then we drop the CNI completely. The sidecar injector completely.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Kostin. I can't read the chat because I have kind of poor vision, so it's really small. I don't know how to fix that. So it's not like I'm ignoring you. I just can't see it. It's like a 1-point font or something. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so just for the record, I'm not completely happy with my solution, because when I started thinking about this, I was sure there was some way of having the kubelet run the additional container, and turns out there's no such way. So I had to basically replicate whatever the kubelet does. So it's much more hacky than it initially looked like it was going to be, right? So I'm not sure if this is a proper solution long term, right? It is a solution now when there are the other issues that prevent you from properly injecting the sidecar as soon as you, let's say, enable the, let's say, admission controllers, which mutate the containers, right? So as soon as you do that, you're currently unable to actually inject the sidecar because the pod gets rejected. And when so during the second phase of the mutating webhook, not of the admission plugin pass, so the second pass, which basically validates the pod. And at that point, it can no longer mutate the pod, so it can just reject it, right? That happens as soon as you enable, let's say, the always pull images admission controller, or if you use pod security policies or stuff like that. There is a fix planned for that, but that's not the only issue. So the other issue was, so this was the ordering issue for the admission controllers, and the other issue is the lack of the ability to run the sidecar during the init containers, right? And that's also being worked on. There's a new proposal out for marking certain containers as sidecars, but the initial implementation is just going to take care of the main container, so it will allow you to have special semantics for the sidecar as far as during the main container operation, but not during the init containers, right? So in that case, if an application developer is using init containers, they have no access to the network inside those init containers for now. So my solution fixes both of those problems, but it's a hacky type of solution. So it's definitely, I don't see it as a long-term solution, at least until something else changes.
So it does fix other problems as well. I kind of like it. I guess one question I have is, you said it's sort of hacky. Do you see it evolving into a non-hacky solution? Could that be done? Because
the one thing we can fix, I don't see a way of fixing it, is the resource requests problem, right? So Kubernetes is not going to take into account the fact that the proxy is going to run. So either the developer would have to increase the resource requests on their own containers, right?
But that will not work. Sorry, if you allocate 3 CPUs for a job, for example, kubelet will configure Docker allocating 3 CPUs to your particular Docker container.
Yes, for limits, but that's about limits. So I'm talking about requests. Right?
Yeah, well, both of them are kind of in the same bucket. Yes, you're right.
Well, no, because the requests are used for scheduling, but they are not used for the actual container, right? So if you just increase the requests, you would then ensure that the node has enough resources available for the sidecar also, right? But then in limits, you only use the regular amount of resources that your app requires, and the additional resources are specified in the sidecar template.
Could we keep the webhook that we have now, but instead of injecting an Istio sidecar, inject a sidecar that just had the logs and a resource usage? That would give the same user experience, and it would solve this problem.
And I thought about this. The same problem applies. I mean, that's kind of the issue. You cannot request more than a limit. So if you cannot say I want request 4 CPUs and limit 3 CPUs. So normally you want to have a job that is using 3 CPUs. You want to have a limit of 3 CPUs, so it doesn't go above that. And you will have an extra CPUs for the sidecar, for example. you would need to request 4 CPUs in the injector to accommodate for both, and then have the actual job run with 3 CPUs configured, and that's not possible. So we need something similar with that. I think it's a good start, but there are some details that don't add up in this mode. The other idea that was discussed by some people, I don't know how to give proper credit because I don't remember, was to use a taints. So basically, to use kubelet to schedule the proxy on the same node, and then do some hack to make sure they get into the same namespace. But that's also very tricky. That will work around the problem that kubelet is not aware of that particular thing. Or even run it as part of the pod of the CNI. So CNI will request for 5 CPUs or how many CPUs it requests, and then run them as itself. Basically, the proxy, all the proxy will be containers in the CNI agent. And that's also a problem for log access, because anyone who has Istio system access can see the logs and, well, at least for debugging. Anyway.
There's another question regarding Istio proxy config and proxy status. It should work out of the box because the proxy is part of the same network namespace, so all its ports are accessible. And if Istio control is just connecting to a certain port, then it should continue to be able to do so, so it shouldn't be a problem. And I believe that's all of the questions, as far as I can tell.
So Marco, do you have the code anywhere where it's public right now, or in any documentation that we can review?
I just need to clean it up a bit, and I'll add the part that actually makes sure that if the containers goes down, that it restarts it. So that's the missing part I still need to do. I'm planning to do that tomorrow, and as soon as I do that, I'm going to publish my code. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, and you mentioned a few. You already know about several issues. Just keeping track of that somewhere so we can follow up and document them. I mean, you might want to maybe we could just make a branch in the Istio CNI repo where you could push your stuff, and then we can figure out how we want to bring it in, start to bring it in.
On this topic, I think Istio CNI is a proper place to send PRs and file bugs and discuss this, because it's already set up, and
yeah,
I think it will be perfectly acceptable to have a flag in Istio CNI that enables this behavior for people to try it out and maybe try other stuff, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'd like to keep it completely separate, not just enable it through a flag, but a completely different container image, because it's so different and it pulls in a lot of other dependencies, right? So it's basically a completely different container compared to what you have now.
I think it's fine. My concern is to have it in the same repository and to have kind of the same community
I'm actually doing that. So my code is inside the CNI.
Oh, perfect.
Just haven't pushed it. Yeah.
Perfect. Happy to approve.
Yeah, I mean, we will. There's a number of others. So basically, what's missing in the CNI plugin that's ready to probably merge from a CI standpoint is we have diffs in Circle CI to test against a bunch more CNI plugins like Weave and Flannel and stuff, and I'm gonna push the nightly for that soon, but we could run those tests on your branch before, and then the regular CNI tests as well. So
awesome, cool.
Okay, I'm not sure if we covered all the questions here. Maybe people can also speak up in case they did not get their answer.
Andrea, you can read the questions.
I can read the question, but it's kind of hard to track down.
I have one question which wasn't addressed, which was about sort of how a user would detect if there was like a problem and get it. It would be great if we could have some instructions on all that stuff. I've never used the CNI plugin for init, but if there was like some kind of hints on how to like look and see if the rules have been done right for users who are troubleshooting why things aren't working.
For the current CNI plugin, there's that documentation was updated for in the 1.1 in the preliminary Istio.io doc. There's a page for CNI and there's a troubleshooting section, and it's got how to check the IP tables in the container. It doesn't have much more than that. So we definitely could beef that up more, but that at least starting point is there.
All right, I'll review that.
I'll dig up the link and put it in the chat here.
Okay, there is one more question. Which CNI plugins have we covered now?
Is the question which?
By the testing.
We've covered Calico, FDD, Flannel, Weave. I think that's it. Let me double
Isn't
check.
there? I think it's documented on the GitHub page, like the main page. I remember I saw a table with where that was tested, right?
Yeah, and in AWS VPCs, we've also done.
Yeah, I think we don't have good coverage for GKE though. Costin, did you get a chance to try it with GKE?
Absolutely.
Okay, so maybe we should update that because it still points as not tested on GKE.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Andra, where is it that you're looking at that you see not tested on GKE?
Let me see. It's like the main page.
In the README?
In the README Istio CNI, there is Helm. No, hold on. Hosted cluster type and uses CNI, Istio CNI tested. And the first one, it's actually, if you enable the GKE network policy.
Yeah, only that one works.
That one works, okay.
Yeah.
The other one doesn't work by the
Okay, but maybe we shouldn't put not tested. We should put whatever, like not available.
Actually, the proud job we have would test on GKE too.
Well,
It's only a manually triggered gate, but it does test on proud.
But for GKE, I haven't looked lately, but is the non-network policy scenario even enabling CNI? Because before
no, it's not. So it's not. We know it doesn't work. It's a requirement to enable the container.
So yeah, maybe we should just mark it instead of not tested. Does not work, not applicable.
No, the plan is to switch the stability performance cluster to use CNI.
Yeah.
So that will cover it. Quite a bit.
In fact, it's not the network policy that enables CNI, it's the Calico plugin that has both CNI and network policy, right? So there are two different things.
Well, the network policy
enables CNI.
When you enable that in the cluster cluster, it enables Calico, and then but it's not Calico that does it. It's the installer that you guys have in GKE.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's confusing to have this hosted Kubernetes table on CNI README because it's most likely it's outdated. Like GKE, it's talking about version 197, which is not even a version with support in Istio 1.1.
Yeah, I mean, we could. This was what I initially did, and to socialize what we've been looking
at. Right, which is about 6 months ago.
Oh yeah, you're right, exactly.
Right.
we could move it out.
So in fact, if we're going to promote CNI to alpha level of support officially, we should have like good documentation here and as well on like Istio.io. I'm not sure if we have it. Do it.
Istio.io doc I just pushed to. I mean, it's updated in Istio.io, but that type of table is not there in Istio.io.
Yeah, the table is not there. The install instruction is there, which I actually tried. It works. The only issue I have, which I think, Tim, you confirm, is not a CNI issue, is sometimes the proxy takes about 3 minutes to reach ready.
Yeah.
And we don't know how that happens. It happens sometimes with CNIs, sometimes without CNI.
That's the certificates, Lynn. We noticed like delays of up to 5 minutes, and it's some issue with certificates not being mounted, and because of this, the pod face the readiness probe and so on. So I do think we have a big issue with that. Like
So
it takes, in my opinion, a bit too long, and it also can cause flakiness in our end-to-end test, which waits for 2 minutes.
So that only happens when you have mutual TLS even permissive is on? Because that's the default, right?
No, control plane authentication policy needs to be enabled, but if you don't have that, and that should only, when you install a fresh cluster, after you install a fresh cluster, should no longer be a problem.
Well,
so it's only a problem for the test framework. If you had a fresh cluster, then yes, that's probably the cause.
yes, I did have a fresh class. I think I just installed like a simplest demo profile.
Yeah, sometimes it's better to wait a minute or two before doing any test on a fresh cluster to stabilize, because if you start the test immediately, then it gets into a retry loop with readiness and everything else, and
I waited long enough. For
Yeah,
sure.
I saw it.
Yeah.
I think when I was making a bunch of namespaces and doing and starting pods, not with auto sidecar, but I mean that was usually with auto, not auto sidecar that I tested it with, and I saw it. But I went back and retried after Lynn and I talked, and I haven't been able to reproduce it since. So I maybe I'll blow that cluster away and try it again.
One comment I have on this topic, one thing that there is a design doc actually, I think, is security or environment. So one thing that CNI plugin can do relatively easy is to wait for the secrets to show up from Citadel, or if the new SDS is used to actually provision the UDS socket for SDS. So that will mean that the proxy will never be started and the pod will not be started because the CNI is waiting anyway. Until the secrets are there, and that will ensure that we wait until secrets are there, and then we start the sidecar and the pod.
That's an awesome idea. In fact,
that's doable.
Yeah.
It's not a very hard change, but the tricky part is to integrate to the new SDS, because we are kind of deprecating the secrets, the way we mount secrets into pods. And the new SDS is not completely ready yet. I mean, it requires brand new cluster and some other. But if you can, someone can look into this, that will be pretty awesome.
So Lynn, just backtrack a little bit on the problem with the secrets not mounting. I've seen that too, and I've got a bug file for it. I think we need to take a look at that, post 1.1 and see if we can sort that out, because it takes like 2 minutes for a cluster to start up sometimes, and that could be a problem. So I agree, that's a problem, and it may be your CNI problem or it may not be. So I think we can determine that, though. There's a way to determine that.
I don't think this like the issue with like the delay in startup has anything to do with CNI. So that's completely orthogonal, and hopefully the CNI will help alleviate those. If we implement what Costin just suggested, that would definitely help, because we're getting into a sort of a bad loop of readiness and crash. How's it called? Crash loop.
It's not crash loop, it's recovering.
Whatever, it is recovering, but it's like it's not a good, good pattern.
That's what we had from the beginning. That's the limitation of secret mounts. There is nothing we know about it except what we discuss here.
Okay.
Yeah, so no disagreement here. How do we tell if it's the delay is caused by the secrets was not mounted fast enough?
You do describe on the pod, and you see there the reason.
Oh, okay. I don't remember seeing that. Okay, thank you. I'll definitely.
Yeah, no problem.
One thing I do is I do describe on the Ingress Gateway, because that's where I seem to have the most trouble. And it'll say like, tried to remount the secret 22 times, which works out to about 2 minutes for me. Yeah. So your gear might be different though.
Okay.
Right. Okay, so on the CNI, it's 11:36. On the CNI front, like Marcus, do you have anything more that you maybe did not get a chance to cover because you were asked questions?
No, that's it.
That's it. Thank you very much for the presentation. And are there any more questions related to CNI and like questions related to the demo today and the proposal today? Nope. Okay, good. So then we can move to the next topic, which is actually a continuation of discussions related to Istio 1.2 priorities. So we had very little time during the last meeting, and the suggestion was for people to add bullets. Let me actually share the screen. To add bullet points with features, and we will have a discussion to rank those. So maybe I should share this screen now, and we can start the discussion. Okay. Okay. So you see the first one, that's improved test coverage for existing feature. I think that's like really the highest priority for now. We really need to do a bit better with the quality in general in Istio. And we have like, there is probably people have seen already the Go Code Mov, or how is it called? There is a document called Code Mov, which suggests a bunch of improvements related to testing and quality. Yeah, any particular disagreement about this first item in bold? Okay, good. So that's definitely, top.
I think we need to have a little bit more education on this too when that's ready to be shared.
Yeah, I think it's already shared, isn't it?
Well, it's a proposal. It's on a bunch of ideas. It's nothing that it's yet agreed. I mean, the TOC will need to on the MOV, code MOV, and for test coverage and existing features. Again, there's two different testing frameworks that are, the stability and performance, and also the new local testing frameworks that is being stabilized, developed, and so forth.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of information around, but I don't know. Maybe it's pretty clear to you, but I feel like
it's not clear to me. So sorry.
Yeah.
But what is clear, I hope, for everyone is that we need to improve the test and kind of rewrite the tests and to that.
Right, but I think we need a concrete to have a little bit more concrete action items. We just need to improve. That's what I was trying to get out.
So Linda, there are kind of two dimensions to this, right? So one is, what are we going to actually use as infrastructure for the tests, and how are we going to structure them? Like, what dependencies will it be reasonable or unreasonable for the tests to take, right, in terms of environments and other things? And then the second thing is being a bit more formal about having a kind of test coverage plan, right? So, basically auditing the features that exist in the stack, auditing the tests for them, identifying gaps, and making sure that the gaps are filled, and also that the tests are written in using the right tools for what they're trying to test.
Right. I think that's what I'm trying to do. I think it's not clear for either of them. The new test framework, I don't think many of us have tried it. I feel like it's being kind of cooked and still being cooked. The other one about the guidance is certainly, and coverage is certainly not really clear as far as what type of tests needs to be using what type of framework and what type of coverage are we shooting for, and certainly produce a table on where we are today and all that. That's I think it would be nice to collaborate, work together on that.
Yeah, no, that's the plan, right? So obviously we have to seed these dialogue with some kind of baseline set of stuff. The test framework stuff is obviously new. Oz is just getting ready, I think, sometime either early next week to merge it up into master, so people can kind of start poking around. But yeah, we're going to have to kind of start with some kind of coverage sheet, maybe, and start identifying gaps and start classifying, what types of tests should be written for each thing, and then we can do a review of it.
And for the record, there are 2 test frameworks. Again, let's not lose track of the stability and performance and scale testing. That's
Okay.
Right.
proven to be critical.
We have in the Istio drive, we have a feature matrix that covers, it's pretty outdated, I think now.
Mhm.
It was meant to cover the various networking features and the type of coverage we had, like in unit test and end-to-end and so on. So maybe we can try to add to that and bring it up to date. Many things have changed, including unit test coverage is not the same as it used to be. Okay.
Yeah, and
Let me just show that maybe. I'll show that to the people. It's there in the, okay, this guy. And we had like here yellow, end-to-end column and coverage, and bright yellow was marking what is not currently covered.
yeah. So something
Okay.
along these lines.
Yeah.
But obviously, we need to probably go and redo the columns and the features.
And the rows as well, because I think we added a bunch more features than we have now, and even like rename some of them.
And maybe go for each feature, have a document that is clearly describing the feature, what it's doing, what where the tests are found, and a bit more than one-liner.
Yeah, but it's kind of nice to have a comprehensive view of what's covered and what not.
Someone can update it.
Like the golden files, I don't think they exist anymore.
No,
because we removed them when we moved to the ADS.
Yeah, that's
right, exactly. That's
So,
a problem too.
Exactly. So that's like 08 kind of.
Yeah.
All right. So Louis, maybe can we take an action item to get the education that we need on this new test framework? So let's say, can we have somebody like Oz or Nate give a good, good demo, good description, either in the Istio Networking or maybe in the Istio community meeting. We record it, we share it with.
Well, I think the intent is to produce a doc, so that's probably the best place. Yeah.
Oh, okay, let's hope that's gonna be sufficient.
And the tests are running today. I mean, that's if you do make test, I believe you have tests running. There are examples that anyone can run. It's not different than any other unit test and framework.
Yep.
And for the other test, it's a readme that it's apparently now a one-liner. You need to run one command and you have the test running. So it's not for the perf.
So I think
is that framework supposed to convert all the tests over? I mean, is it supposed to handle like the end-to-end and integration, or I'm a little confused of what we mean by the new framework.
So there are the new integration testing framework is designed to enable feature testing in simpler environments than we currently use today in end-to-end, right? So it's designed to allow for coverage of the same feature faster. I can be run entirely locally within a set of constraints. And effectively what it does is it just runs the jobs outside a Kubernetes environment and stubs out things that are necessary so that you can start basically exercising features end-to-end in that context. It also has the ability to run the same test suite, ideally the same set of tests in a lightweight Kubernetes environment. I don't know if everybody is aware of the Kubernetes and Docker effort, which Kubernetes itself now uses for conformance testing. So it's an analog, it's similar to Minikube, but it behaves more like production Kubernetes, and it's what the Kubernetes community itself has settled on. And so that's an alternative execution environment that spins up pretty quickly for a Kubernetes cluster and allows you to run the same test.
And the other one is what we've been using for stability and release qualification. It's a one under Istio tools where we run long running tests and high performance tests.
Yeah. So there's what should happen over time, and there's some discussion in the code mold folder, is that these integration tests and testing on kind are sufficient to basically produce a release candidate of a component. And then the components are pulled into a kind of release bundle where they are run against smoke tests, with actual production environments that have long-running tests like the kind Costin described, and things that are a bit more like what the end-to-end tests do today on GKE. But they are effectively post-submit, right?
Okay.
One thing I want to point out is last week, people mentioned that they didn't know how to run the tests and that they thought that they could only be run by like Googlers. I've updated all the documentation and cleaned things up a lot. So if you're still having issues running them, please file an issue or something. They should be easy to use now, and anyone can run them even on a small cluster.
So that's the performance stability test, right?
Yes, performance and stability test.
And John added the
Make a note in the doc.
John added the link in here in the notes, so please use that link.
And because there is a big confusion here, I mean, performance and stability. Performance means that you can verify the performance of the system in a small cluster, and everything is perfectly doable with a small cluster. The only thing that is not possible today is scalability test. I mean, if you want to run tens of thousands of workloads, for that we still require a dedicated cluster, but that is not required for the testing. That's something we still do pre-release, and it needs to be done in a large cluster. But this is a separate discussion and separate mode of operation.
Mm.
And I'm sure people can.
Yeah. So Tim, you're asking some question about kind versus D and D. So
Yeah.
I don't think we can debate too much about the framework in this meeting,
Right.
because there is like a separate work group that's gonna deal with this kind of question. So I don't wanna I want us to discuss the priority. I think for now we have a trouble identifying how we're going to execute on this priority, but I don't think we disagree that this is a priority, like just improving the test coverage, right? How we will do it with the new test framework, and so it's still like a good discussion to have. All right. Okay, so next one, continue to clean up renaming namespace isolation issue. So I don't know who added that and what it is.
That was me.
Okay, can you elaborate, please?
So not all of the export to stuff is fully implemented. Not all of the mesh config flags for controlling the scoping mechanisms are implemented. The
bugs.
There are almost certainly bugs in it. Changing the default for new installs to be namespace isolated should be a thing that should be on the table.
Okay, so this is basically the work that's left to do for like, it's called config scoping now, and like related to the sidecar CRD, right?
Not just the sidecar CRD, this also affects service, mesh config, virtual service, gateway, right? Well, basically affects all the API, all the networking APIs.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So it's a lot of it is done, and there's enough there that people can achieve scoping or isolation, sorry, but it's not as complete as we would like.
Okay, so we might actually need again, like, to go into finer details with this one to see what is to be done and see where people can help. Or like, is there anybody who's already, signed up to do this, like you or Shriram?
I think Shriram and I are implicitly signed up because.
Okay.
And there are different people already working on different items, and
yeah,
most of it is known.
Yeah, a bunch of this is captured in GitHub issues already, I think.
Okay. Okay, another thing we could probably do, like if we're like really going to a roadmap, is to like track everything with GitHub issues or epics and link them here or in the spreadsheet if we'll have a spreadsheet.
Yeah, we should probably convert to an epic.
Yeah, and we can do that offline. Okay, but I guess that would be an easier way to keep track of everything. All right, next one, IPv6 quality support. We actually discussed this last time, and I think Sergey is on top of this. So if it's coming in one to that's perfect. Okay, this is more like general, promote some of the features and APIs from alpha to beta. Okay, so that will happen, I guess, for, what is it now, still alpha?
Everything.
No, there are...
well, the sidecar stuff, the config scoping, the view.
So the config scoping, the CNI, right? If
Yeah,
you
the
will have it
CNI
like,
field.
right?
What is config scoping?
It's the namespace isolation.
Why did we change the name?
Ask Louis. That's what I saw last time. It was called config scoping. How should we call this, Louis?
don't even know.
Namespace isolation?
Yeah, namespace isolation.
Okay, yeah.
So config scoping is something else.
So.
Yeah, I think config scoping is more just a general discussion of how to represent it in the APIs.
CNI. Will there be anything else like do we on the
clusters?
Multi-cluster, yeah, that's a good one.
Multi-cluster
Multi-cluster.
plane, multi-control plane. Yeah, we actually have a feature like a laundry list of things that's not working and not protected.
Okay, so maybe like people again can go ahead and add the respected features they would like to focus on, and because like to promote it to beta, it means the API will become stable, like it needs to meet a certain like criteria for quality and test coverage.
Right. We also need to consider actually changing the version tag on the API to beta. That's almost as important at this point. And that's going to require figuring out how to do.
I think that deserves its own bullet point. API to beta. There was a discussion on Slack about that, wasn't it? About.
I'm sure there has been. But it is an adoption blocker for some people. They just won't adopt a product with an alpha in its label.
Okay. All right, good. Next one. Okay, eliminate requirement to declare container port. I know what this is about. It's assigned. Who's working on that? And
Yuchen, right?
Yuchen. Okay. So this is Yuchen on the line?
Yes, fine.
Okay, so this is like this will be splitting the listener config into inbound and outbound. Is that the approach?
That's part of it.
It will keep the same configuration for outbound, but it will add another listener for inbound.
Okay, so splitting the listeners then. And there is another item here about listeners. So there is another item that actually goes with it. Maybe I should just move it up here so we discuss it, because we have to change the listener config to use filter chains. Envoy is deprecating stuff, so we need to move to this. And we also need the filter chain discovery service. So that's like, that may go along with this, or maybe separate.
No, they're separate items.
Separate items. And there is somebody else, I think, who added Alexander.
The first one is probably doable in the reasonable time. I mean, 1 or 2 time frames. The other one, I don't think I hope 1 or 2 will not be a 6 months effort again. So we should probably take time to account when we discuss this kind of stuff.
Yeah, but I think somebody added this. Who's Alexander? Did you add this? And you want to work on this, or?
I did not add that. I added a definition for the acronym. I'm learning the domain space, and this helps me.
Okay, I see. So basically, we don't have an owner for this one yet. Need to find an owner, I think. But we'll probably need to do the actual stack rank. So now I think we're just going through this like sort of requirements and discuss a bit about them so that people understand what they mean. And then we will have the actual like see who can do what, because there are quite a few of them.
Yeah, so what's the impact for filter chain and filter chain discovery service?
It's rewriting the whole generation of the configuration. It's not.
Yeah.
And we want to do it first for the container port. We can do in a safe way. Basically, can be opt-in. Users will still use the old way if they have container port, but they'll have a way to sign up to enable this mode. And after we go through a release and it's stable and we verify everything is fine, then we make it a default. And then
so this is a new thing from Envoy?
It's not a new thing. It has been implemented in last few months.
No, it's very old. Like it's at least 6 months old or anyway, 8 months old, but we just did not use it.
But it's a huge change, and again, it's not very. It's just the fact that they are planning to remove it. That's the only reason we are doing it for outbound chain. For inbound chain, we need to do it to support this container port. So we are going first with the thing that is required, and then we'll do probably the second one after. we need to be very careful with production stability. As you know, we had so many problems, and we need to be very careful with any change we make.
Yeah, it's been also indicated that filter chain may help with the listener scale in general. So when we were debating about the scale issue, that was one of the proposal.
All right, let's keep going.
Okay, good. CNI on by default. So we already discussed about CNI. I think that's where we want to go. No doubt about it. So we just have to harden it and, add all the other features. If it actually solves the startup problem, I will be like, a big supporter of this.
In my opinion, I think that's kind of dependent on the operator, because right now the Helm charts are split, and if you install with Istio CNI enabled, it's not actually going to install the CNI.
Right, it's just a flag in the injector.
But we are planning to replace the whole thing with the new installer and the operator. So Zen and basically a cart. So
right. So because this is tracked in the environment working group, so it will be high priority there anyway, right? Okay. CNI adding sidecar replacing auto, but that's, I think those two. Okay, maybe they're separate,
completely different issues.
But still, like with the CNI. And then eliminate the requirement to name the ports with a prefix to indicate the protocol. Can we actually do that?
So really what this is saying is that you want protocol sniffing.
Yeah, but is that a high priority? Like we have quite a lot of things.
So as long as, so it's clearly a utility issue right now, right? We know that it is because we get a fair amount of feedback about people feeling like they have to label ports to get the system to work.
Right, that's a usability issue, right?
Yeah, can we fix this through tooling rather than implementing a new feature?
Well, I think that's probably going to just continue with the usability feedback that we've gotten is you're making me do more config than I want. Like 90% of my traffic is HTTP, and it's not hard to sniff HTTP or give the administrator some way of saying, look, all of my traffic is HTTP and I'll label it as something else if it is something else, right? Something along those lines. So there are options in config, there are options in sniffing, and there are also options in tooling. But someone needs to kind of go through this holistically and come up with some proposals to be reviewed.
As long as that doesn't have the latency and magic, probably it's fine. I mean, I'm worried about any deep packet inspection and other complex solutions that may come out of it.
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, to treat things as TCP if you can't figure out what they are very quickly. Most things we can figure out what they are very quickly.
Right, so Louis, this has been we've been discussing about this in 01 or 02, right? About this one. So it may not make it to the top list, but it's there. So let's move on.
It'll be in stack rank.
Okay, so virtual IP creation for multi-cluster.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Okay, so can somebody provide more details?
I don't know what.
Is this just for the virtual IP for the gateway or something else?
No, for the cluster itself. The problem with synchronizing. We have some solution in place, but it's not very good.
So what does this involve costing?
When you have a service running in multiple clusters, we want all of them to see the same VIP.
Oh, I see. Okay, so that's basically a global, let's say global VIP across multiple clusters.
Or standardizing what we have today, which is every cluster has its own VIP and they're all equivalent. So
yeah, I think that's probably more realistic.
That's what we have, but yeah. And then it has some DNS problems if you.
Yeah.
We need to think about it. It's not. We don't have a solution. I mean, yeah, we have a kind of solution.
Okay, so it's almost 12, so we have a few more to discuss. I wonder if we can go through them.
We actually have a lunch to go to.
Okay. So we will continue, I guess, next time, and maybe we can also start adding test coverage to feature matrix, and I guess attempt to do. No, we'll have to do the stack ranking within the working group, meeting. I don't think we can necessarily do it before that.
Well, we should probably move this into a spreadsheet and let people start providing feedback. But we should start with proposing a rank.
Okay. All right. Okay. We'll stop now and continue in 2 weeks. Thanks everybody for joining, and see you in 2 weeks. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.